These two cards do exactly the same thing, have identical text and art, and are both over 30 years old. But you can get a playset of this one for $7, while this other one is going to set you back over $100. Not knowing the difference between unlimited cards and revised cards can cost you a lot of money. Let's find out how to know the difference so that way you know what cards you're buying and how you can protect yourself from scammers. Why on earth is one of these cards worth 10 times the amount of the other, and how can you even spot the difference? Back in 1993, before alternate art, fancy frames, or even set symbols, Magic cards from different sets looked remarkably similar. The first printing of Magic cards is Alpha from August 1993. A few months later, we get another print run of Beta cards. You can easily tell the difference between these two sets because Beta cards are cut differently and literally have different dimensions. The next set, called Unlimited, is also easy to tell the difference. Can you see why? But once we get to the fourth print run of Revised in the spring of 1994, the differences aren't so obvious, as now cards have the same dimensions and white borders. The next year, Wizards of the Coast started including the copyright date to clear things up, but before we get to that point in time, knowing the difference in sets is pretty confusing. The biggest factor affecting the huge price difference between Unlimited and Revised cards is the supply. Unlimited is estimated to have a print run of about 35 million total cards, while Revised has a print run estimated between 150 million and 250 million total cards. That means for each copy that exists of an Unlimited card, you're looking at 5 to 8 copies of Revised. In addition to Unlimited having a much smaller supply of cards, they have a higher price because most people like the aesthetic of Unlimited cards over Revised. While the cards may seem quite similar at first glance, there are some key differences that stand out when compared side by side. The overall color saturation of Unlimited cards is much richer. Unlimited also offers a more simple and pure look, as many cards contain pure text as opposed to mana symbols, or they include the word tap rather than the new tap symbol, but we'll talk more about that later. When comparing these side by side, it's not too hard to tell the difference in the color saturation, but when you're only seeing one of these cards in someone's trade binder or an online listing, it can be much more difficult to do so, especially if you're the one out of every 12 men who are colorblind like myself. Quick, which set is this from? Not so easy to tell when a card is by itself. And this is how people sell cards from the wrong sets and scam others out of potentially hundreds of dollars. Over the years, I've seen plenty of listings on eBay for unlimited cards with higher unlimited prices, but then when you actually take a look at the picture of the card, it's clear to me that they're revised. Now sure, some of these might be innocent mistakes, while others are clearly intentional scams. Either way, not knowing the difference is going to cost you a lot of money. Let's explain the differences to make sure you pay the right price for the right card. The first difference is by far the most obvious and easiest to see. What's the difference between these two cards? The tap symbol, of course. The older Unlimited set was printed before Wizards of the Coast had invented the first, and now old school, version of the tap symbol that was used in the newer Revised set. Man, who doesn't love that tilted T tap symbol? The nostalgia is hitting hard right now. But since not all cards reference tapping, we're going to need to dive deeper. Another difference is that more cards started using mana symbols in their text box in Revised compared to writing out the words, such as 1 green mana, like they did in the older Unlimited set. But this can get confusing because some Unlimited cards do use mana symbols. If mana was part of the activation cost, the symbol was used. If it was part of the ability, the text was used instead. Fairly confusing. Again, this can be helpful sometimes, but since most cards don't involve tapping or colored mana symbols, how are we supposed to tell the difference? This is where things start to get a little tricky. Pay attention. While we mentioned this earlier, it's worth pointing out here that the overall color saturation is different between the two sets. Unlimited is the set with the stronger, more pronounced colors. Meanwhile, the Revised card is the more bland, ugly version. In general, this is true, but not always. Look at the difference between all these swamps. All of these are from Revised, but they have a ton of color variation. So this is my least favorite method of determining the difference between the two sets. The next difference for identical cards is the size of the rules text. Unlimited was printed with a larger font, so the rules text takes up more of the text box. The Revised version, on the other hand, has smaller, sadder text. Now let's look at the card name, as its location on the card is slightly different. In Unlimited, the text starts closer to the left side edge of the frame, where Revised has more of an indent with the text starting more away from the edge. Jumping down to the artist name at the bottom of the card, we see another difference. Switching from the horizontal axis to the vertical axis, we can see that Unlimited has the artist name centered in the frame between the bottom of the text box and the top of the border. The Revised card, on the other hand, puts the artist name farther down on the card, right on top of the border. One last difference to mention with the card name, card type, and artist name is that the color of the text is different. Unlimited has this darker gray tone, where Revised has a cleaner white text. This is a lot. So to review, Unlimited has larger rules text, the card name is closer to the border, the artist name is vertically centered in the frame, and the text color is gray. Meanwhile, Revised has smaller rules text, the card name is more indented, the artist name is at the bottom of the frame close to the border, and the text color is white. Any questions?
You got all that, honey?
3 liquors wearing pants, plate of hot air, basket of grandma's breakfast, and change the bull to a gill. Got it.
This can be a lot to remember, and it's pretty confusing. After all, the rules aren't even consistent. Unlimited has the card name text closer to the border and the artist name farther from the border. Meanwhile, the opposite is true with Revised, where the card name is what's farther from the border and the artist name is the part that's closer to the border. Combine all of this with the differences in coloring you get from different cards in the same set, and we're just as lost as when we started this journey. But this last rule is the clearest and easiest to remember. The key difference between Unlimited and Revised cards is the texture between the frame and the border. Unlimited has a beveled edge all around the frame, giving it a 3D look, as if the frame comes up off of the border. Revised simply has a flat black line surrounding the border, giving no visual effect of depth. So when you're in doubt trying to remember which set has the gray text or the alignment of the card name or the artist name, you can always rely on the frame to know the difference. The card with the 3D effect is the third printing of Unlimited, right after Alpha and Beta. You're now equipped to spot any card from the early 90s and know with confidence which set it comes from and thus how much it should be worth. And to keep your cards in pristine condition and worth as much money as possible, you better not be sleeving them the wrong way. Make sure you sleeve them the right way by watching this video.